President Biden took part today in a dignified transfer of the remains of 3 fallen U.S. troops killed in Jordan. The deaths were the first U.S. fatalities blamed on Iran-backed militia groups, which for months have been attacking U.S. forces in that region. And just now, the U.S. military is confirming that airstrikes have just begun in Iraq and Syria. Joining us live right now with an update is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. Tell us about these latest strikes.
Good evening to you, Steve. So we just learned from the U.S. Central Command that the U.S. has carried out airstrikes in both Iraq and Syria, striking more than 85 targets. And these targets include command and intel centers and storage facilities for rockets and missiles. And we're targeting Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps belonging to Iran and also other affiliated groups. And that is in retaliation to a Sunday drone attack in Jordan, backed by militia groups backed by Iran, that killed 3 U.S. service members and injured more than 40. And meanwhile, also today, President Biden joined grieving families as they witnessed the return of the remains of the fallen U.S. troops to American soil. Just today, Biden stood with his hand over his heart and watched as the flag-draped cases were brought against him. He met privately with the families before the roughly 15-minute solemn ritual, which was all in silent, but spoke volumes about the sacrifices these Americans made. And these fallen troops include Sergeant William Rivers, 46, who joined the Army Reserve in 2011. Also Specialist Kennedy Sanders, 24, who worked at a pharmacy and coached in children's soccer and basketball. Also Specialist Brianna Muffet, who worked for a home care provider to cook and clean for disabled people. And here are the parents of Brianna Muffet as well as Kennedy Sanders remembering their children. Watch.
She was always there for everybody.
Yes, she was.
She loved her friends. She loved her family.
Even though her time was short on earth, she lived her life to the fullest and she enjoyed her life.
Biden called each one of these families earlier this week and tried to gauge their feelings about him attending the dignified transfer today at Dover Air Force Base. And yesterday, one day before the transfer today, Biden said this about the fallen soldiers. Watch.
They've raised their lives in harm's way. They risked it all. And we'll never forget the sacrifices and service to our country, that the dozens of service members who were wounded and are recovering now.
The last time that President Biden participated in a dignified transfer was back in 2021, and that was for the fallen U.S. service members during the Afghanistan withdrawal. And back then, some family members actually blamed President Biden, blamed his policies for the loss of their loved ones. Steve.
NTD's Iris Tao with that live report from the White House. Thank you, Iris. The embattled Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney admitting to having an affair with her top prosecutor. In a fiery document filed today, DA Fani Willis said that the affair had nothing to do with her prosecution of former President Trump. But the House GOP is ramping up its probe into Willis's alleged misuse of those federal funds. And in D.C., former President Trump enjoying a break in the election criminal case. NTD's Arlene Richards has the latest.
Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade and DA Fani Willis admit to an affair. Wade's admission was contained in an affidavit attached to Willis's document filing on Friday. In a fiery response, the DA argues that the personal relationship is not a conflict of interest and that she and Wade shouldn't be disqualified from the prosecution of the case. The 176-page document comes in response to a motion filed by defendant Mark Roman. Roman accuses Willis of the affair and misuse of county funds for her own benefit. Willis states in her filing the personal relationship between Special Prosecutor Wade and District Attorney Willis has never involved direct or indirect financial benefit to District Attorney Willis. Willis also argues that she and Wade don't have any financial interest in any of the defendant's convictions. She says this would be required in order to disqualify them. Willis's response comes as the House GOP steps up its probe of her prosecution. In a letter on Friday, House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan formally subpoenaed Willis to turn over numerous documents in connection with an ongoing probe. The House is investigating suspected cooperation between Willis's office and the former House January 6 committee. Jordan states in the letter that he's been requesting records since August, but Willis hasn't responded. He's looking for information on whether or not Willis misused federal funding to prosecute Trump and others. The renewed request comes after Willis fired a whistleblower who tried to stop a top campaign aide from misusing federal funds. As Willis sees an increase in legal action, former President Trump is getting a break in D.C. The D.C. District Court calendar suddenly dropped Trump's March 4 trial date in the election case brought by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. A review of Judge Tanya Chutkan's calendar shows the date is missing, and a different trial is scheduled for April 2nd, during the time that Trump's trial would have been in process. Chutkan stated at a hearing on Wednesday that she didn't expect to have any trials in March. The delay comes as Trump waits for a federal appeals panel to rule on his motion for presidential immunity. The three-judge panel was expected to make a quick decision after the case was fast-tracked, but they haven't made a decision yet. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
A rushed vote is coming on a bill that will grant billions of dollars, in aid to Taiwan, Israel, and Ukraine and make changes to border policy. The text still has not been released yet, but Senate leadership is already scheduling a vote by the middle of next week. NTD's Melina Wisecup joins us now from Capitol Hill. Good evening, Melina. So tell us, some Republicans are expressing frustration not only with what's rumored to be in the bill, but also with the expedited timeline to vote on it from Senate leadership.
Hi, Steve. Good to be with you. So we're expecting to see that bill text to be released at some point during this weekend. But like you mentioned already, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer has told senators they should be prepared to vote on this by next Wednesday. Now, over the past couple of weeks, supporters of this bill have tried to defend it and dispel what they say is misinformation about it, such as the idea that it would allow for around 5,000 illegal crossings per day before the federal government would be required to take action to secure the border. Now, like you mentioned, there are some who are frustrated right now with their Senate leadership. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, for example, has been trying to sell this bill to his party by saying that this is likely the only opportunity that they have to get something on the border done. Here's McConnell.
In fact, I don't think we'd get 60 votes for any border plan if we had a fully Republican government. So this is a unique opportunity.
Now, Senator Rick Scott, for example, led a group of senators just the other week expressing outrage with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell for forcing the whole body to just swallow a bill that just a few number of select Republicans and Democrats have spent months writing. Here's how Senator Rick Scott sums it up. He says it's a routine practice.
They do it behind closed doors. They give it to us at the last minute and say, vote for it. Well, we don't really care if you vote for it because the Democrats are going to vote for it, and we'll just get 10 or 12 of Republicans to vote for it. So they've trained us.
Now, Senator Mike Lee similarly took to Twitter to express his outrage with it. We'll read you a little bit of what he said. He said there's no universe in which the Senate could thoroughly debate and revise a bill of this magnitude that will fund military operations in 3 distant parts of the world and make massive permanent changes to immigration law. Now, when that vote does happen next week, it will be interesting to see how many Republicans in the Senate actually vote for it, Steve, considering so many have expressed opposition to it. It will also be interesting to look at if there are Democrats who are opposing it. There could be a number of them opposing it on the grounds that it's too harsh on illegal immigrants or doesn't do enough to reform immigration law. Now, over in the House, the Speaker has already killed the idea of bringing it to the floor for a vote, so it's likely to stop in the Senate if it does emerge from there and not even make it to the president's desk. Steve?
Certainly be following this very closely. NTD's Melina Wisecup with that live report at the Capitol. Thank you, Melina. And joining us now to discuss the border deal that is in the Senate, as Melina just told us, as well as the trucker convoy making way through his state, we have Texas Congressman Keith Self. Texas Congressman Keith Self, thank you so much for joining.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Congressman, the Take Our Border Back convoy has arrived in Dripping Springs, Texas, drawing a pretty big crowd, more than 1,000 people coming out to support the Secure the Border effort. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin spoke to the crowd, Ted Nugent playing the national anthem. Is this going to evolve into something bigger?
Well, I certainly hope so. This is exactly what we need. We need the American people to start speaking out. We need them to start rallying, making a demand on the Biden administration to enforce the laws as they swore to do. I believe this will be a fairly large, peaceful assembly. and a exercise of free speech. I think it's going to be larger than you saw in Dripping Springs.
Congressman, to your point of it being a peaceful assembly, the convoy did suffer some setbacks and interference along the way. One person posting photos of slashed tires he said belonged to people taking part in the convoy. Why do you think they're receiving opposition in this case, vandalism? And are you concerned that there could be agent provocateurs and people that are there to cause trouble?
Well, they may be there, but they've taken steps for internal security, and I believe they will handle it well. Doesn't mean you won't see some of these vandalism acts, but I believe the rally itself, the convoy itself, will be an exercise in peaceful assembly, which is one of our First Amendment rights, assembly.
As you know, Speaker Johnson has said that the bipartisan border deal in the Senate is pretty much dead on arrival in the House. But there is some division within your conference over the bill. Have you seen the text of the bill? When do you expect to see it? Is it a non-starter?
Well, we haven't seen the text of the bill. All we have is leaked information. So while it may not be exactly right, I believe it's fairly accurate. So yes, when you say that it allows 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country every year, that is a non-starter. That is a hard no.
As part of the Texas delegation, how do you feel that Governor Greg Abbott has been doing using the Texas National Guard and has the support of 25 governors around the country to support the border, which is the job essentially of the federal government?
He's doing an excellent job. We literally just released a letter by all but one of the Texas Republican delegation that tells him to stand firm on your constitutional authority to defend your border if the federal government refuses to do it.
Congressman, are you concerned that the Democrats are just sort of coming to the table on the border right now because of an election year and using this to play politics? And how do you put the American people's, I guess, minds at rest that this is not going to be the case?
I have absolutely no confidence that when President Biden says if we sign this deal, he will close the border, he will not. The policy of the Biden administration is an open border. That's what Congress is wrestling with. How do we change the behavior of a lawless president who doesn't care about the border, who doesn't care about the law, doesn't care about Congress? How do we change his behavior, his actual behavior on the border? It's not more money, not more policy, not more law. How do we change behavior?
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.